You watched the news. You followed every headline, every update, every detail that unfolded in the case of little Emanuel Harrow. You felt sorrow, maybe even anger, as his story was told and retold. But what if I told you what you thought you knew was only the beginning? That while the world looked on, believing the investigation was nearing closure, a hidden truth waited silently at the very edge of their own backyard, a place overlooked, dismissed, and yet holding the answers no one dared imagine. Ask yourself, how many times do we think we see the whole story? How often do we convince ourselves that justice has a clear path, that the wrongs have been exposed, and yet the worst remains hidden right under our noses? For Emanuel, for every child who cannot speak, the consequences of what was left unseen are devastating. The questions are haunting. How could no one notice? How could a life be reduced to whispers and shadows buried where we all thought safety existed? Tonight we trace the steps investigators took to uncover a secret that refuses to be ignored. A place that finally speaks, revealing fragments of a truth that demands confrontation, reflection, and accountability. And as we follow each revelation, we are forced to ask ourselves, what responsibility do we all carry when tragedy hides behind doors we assume are locked, behind eyes that look away, behind lives that seem ordinary until they are anything but? If you want to follow every step of this investigation, every hidden clue and every shocking discovery as we retrace the path that brought these secrets to light, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. Join us because the story is far from over and every detail matters. Even after both parents were arrested, the investigation was far from over. Law enforcement knew there were pieces of this puzzle still hidden, fragments of truth that could not be ignored. And then, in the quiet of the Harrow family's backyard, they found it. It was not obvious at first, a small depression in the earth easily missed by anyone walking past, but trained eyes and tireless investigators saw it. And cadaver dogs led them directly to a secret no one could have anticipated. In that hidden hole lay a blood-stained cloth. Nearby, unusual tools, objects, investigators described as being out of place, hidden deliberately. Each item, each detail carried weight. Each was a silent witness to a story that Emanuel could not tell. The discovery was methodical, painstaking. Officers documented every angle, photographed every fragment, and collected evidence with the care that only professionals understand. Every step followed procedure. Ground-penetrating equipment verified the boundaries of the hole. Nothing was left to chance. No shadow of a clue was dismissed. And as they unearthed the items one after another, the reality of what had been hidden settled like a heavy fog. This was not merely evidence. It was a glimpse into a truth that had been buried literally and figuratively. A truth that forced the question, how long had these things remained in the darkness unnoticed while a child's life had ended in suffering? How could such secrets exist so close to, where families lived, laughed, and believed themselves safe? Every investigator who looked upon the findings knew that these were not ordinary objects. Each held meaning, each carried an implication, each demanded answers. And as the team carefully lifted the last of the items from the soil, one undeniable reality emerged. The hidden had been uncovered, but the weight of what it meant was only beginning to settle on everyone who dared to look closely. For those who knew Emanuel, the shock of the discovery cut deeper than any headline could convey. Neighbors, friends, even strangers who had followed the case felt the weight of something they could not have imagined, how close the truth had been, hidden so near. While a child's life had been silenced, every object recovered from that hidden hole was a reminder of what had been missed, what had been ignored, and what could never be undone. Surviving siblings and extended family carried a burden no words can lighten. Each glance at an empty crib, each whispered memory, was now intertwined with this new revelation. They were forced to confront the reality that what was once unseen had been there all along. And the questions gnawed at them. How could this have happened in a place we called home? How could protection and safety coexist with hidden horrors right beneath our feet? Even the community felt the sting of guilt. Parents, neighbors, teachers, they all wondered whether there were signs they overlooked, voices they didn't hear, or moments they dismissed as ordinary. For those who followed Emanuel's story from the very beginning, the discovery of the hidden evidence was more than a procedural milestone. It was a confrontation with the uncomfortable truth that tragedy can hide in plain sight and that the world sometimes sees but chooses not to act. And as investigators carefully documented, the scene, family and community alike were left with the heavy realization that innocence had been stolen and that accountability extended far beyond the yard where the secret had been found. Reflection was inevitable. Questions demanded answers, and the lingering guilt, the unbearable question of what could have been done, would not fade with time. As the investigation unfolded, it became impossible to ignore the larger questions beyond the Harrow backyard. Every piece of evidence, every hidden object, every blood-stained fragment raised not only the question of individual accountability, but also of a system that allowed a child suffering to go unnoticed for so long. Investigators followed every protocol, meticulously documenting, photographing, and collecting each item. Ground-penetrating equipment, cadaver dogs, and painstaking forensic methods were employed, leaving no stone unturned. Yet, even as the law enforcement team worked with precision, there was an unavoidable weight that settled over those who had been entrusted with the protection of children. How had the prior warning signs, the history of abuse, the cracks in safety nets not triggered earlier intervention? How many warnings were missed, ignored, or dismissed as minor until the unthinkable could no longer be concealed? For the community and for the professionals involved, the sense of guilt was relentless. Social workers, law enforcement officers, and neighbors alike could not escape the question, could this tragedy have been prevented if someone had looked closer, questioned harder, or acted sooner? Each detail unearthed from that hidden hole was a haunting reminder that failure to observe even once can have irreversible consequences. The Harrow case became more than an investigation into a single family. It became a mirror reflecting systemic gaps, lapses in vigilance, and the chilling reality that oversight, neglect, or inaction can carry a human cost no one can calculate. As each item was cataloged, each step of the scene reconstructed, the investigators understood something fundamental. Uncovering the hidden truth is only part of justice. The rest lies in confronting uncomfortable questions, demanding accountability, and ensuring that the systems designed to protect the innocent do not falter again. As the sun set over the Harrow property, the weight of what had been uncovered lingered in the air. The hidden hole, the blood-stained cloth, the tools meticulously concealed, all were more than evidence. They were a testament to a truth that had demanded to be seen. And yet, for every object recovered, for every step of painstaking investigation, one question remained, heavy in the hearts of everyone who bore witness to the story. How many times do we look but fail to truly see? Emanuel's life, though brief now, speaks through the painstaking work of those who refuse to let the hidden remain hidden. His story forces reflection not only on individual actions, but on collective responsibility for neighbors, families, and entire communities. The haunting realization emerges: vigilance is not optional. Awareness is not a choice. The cost of inaction is measured in lives that may never be recovered, in innocence that may never return. And as we retrace the investigation, we are left to grapple with a stark truth. Justice is not only the result of arrests, evidence, or convictions. It is the work of facing uncomfortable realities, acknowledging the failures that allowed harm to continue, and ensuring that the systems entrusted with protection never falter again. Emanuel's story is a call not for despair, but for action. It is a reminder that attention, care, and accountability are not abstract ideals, they are obligations, and the consequences of neglect are real and forever lasting. If you want to follow every revelation, every hidden clue, and stay informed as investigators uncover more of the story, subscribe and turn on notifications. Join us as we continue to retrace the steps of this case, honor Emanuel's memory, and hold truth and justice at the center of every discovery